Taking the daily time. All right, 6 o'clock. Let's start this meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome and thanks for coming this evening. Please take the attendance.
All council members are present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 3 is the approval of the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments from the public on the agenda? Council, any comments, questions? Please call the roll.
Tildenburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Motion passes. Open forum. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the council on an item that is not listed on tonight's agenda? Please come up. Please state your name and address, sir.
Yeah, I'm Doug Ostreim. I'm the founder of Ostreim Landscaping and the original owner of our property out there on Western Avenue. Been almost 30 years since I first became involved with that property out there, which includes 6 Mile Creek that runs through it. And I know that 6 Mile Creek will not be addressed in tonight's later flood discussion, so I won't address anything on that issue. But you know, all this time, we've dealt with issues with 6 Mile Creek. One of the things that was identified 30-some years ago is that there's a problem with an obstruction in the North Channel. We know that material was dumped in a spot up on the college land that disrupts the flow, so almost all of the water goes through that South Channel, which we have to deal with as it comes through our property. We've managed to protect our property pretty well because, as we were told by the city 30 years ago, it was our problem and we'd have to take care of our own situation. So we built up our berm and got things so that the water doesn't flow over the bank into our property. However, it does flow into properties farther downstream and then turns around and comes back the back way. But needless to say, with all these studies that have been done and this and that, nobody wants to address the specific issue of that blockage in that other channel. You had that drainage study presented a couple of meetings here this spring. They talked then about, I don't know, 45% or whatever the number was, I don't remember exactly, but that they said would go through that North Stream. Well, it doesn't happen. You can go up there, that huge box culvert that's under the intersection of Western and the bypass tells you exactly that at one time they expected quite a bit of water to come that way. When the water's back and clear up through the apple orchard and everywhere else, threatening to go across Western, and you go up there and you're lucky if you see a trickle coming through that culvert. So we know things aren't right. And we also know that most of the proposals in that study that we talked about earlier this spring are probably not going to happen because they're totally unfeasible. However, on the other hand, in reference to that study, we were also told that the final report would be done by the end of May or 1st of June, somewhere in that time frame. I haven't heard another thing about it, so I'm just wondering even where that's at. But I really think if we're going to get serious about flooding, we need to talk about what we're going to do about that situation in 6 Mile Creek that has a pretty simple solution. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the public? Okay, we'll move on. Consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public comment on any of the items on the consent agenda? Council, do you have any questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Rasmussen,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tildenburn.
Aye.
Motion passes. And I invite Bonnie Foster up here to introduce a new employee.
Mayor and council members, I would like to introduce to you Amber Hansen. She is my new deputy city clerk. She's been in the office for a little over a week, and I wanted to take this opportunity to welcome her in front of all of you.
Thank you very much. I am very excited to be with the City of Brookings.
I don't know, is Claire Kennecke here? She is. We'll get a report from the Student Association.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, I'm Claire Kennecke, and I'm the Government Affairs Chair that is serving for SDSU Students Association. So I'll be here at the rest of the meetings for the rest of my term. Yes, a busy, exciting week on campus this week. Classes started Monday, so 2 days in. It's been good to see everyone. I think everyone's excited to be back and get back into the swing of things. Although we're waiting on official numbers, SDSU is expecting this to be one of the, if not the largest freshman class ever seen. We're waiting on official numbers from the Board of Regents. I think that gets released in the next few weeks or so. But to accommodate for this large freshman class, they've had to reconfigure parking a little bit, and so when you're a resident, you get the resident parking passes. The Southeast resident parking passes covers the the typical resident area of like Benoist, Young, the southeast corner of campus. So they typically have that large parking lot to the east of like Ben and Young. And so they have that, and then they also have the parking lot south of Hyde and Brown halls. They've also added half of the lot that's south of Dektronics Hall will now be southeast resident parking spots. And then also they have added one of the, it was formerly commuter parking lots on the west side of campus for the like Meadows, North and South, and then the Hanson Hall residents. So a lot of words there. Basically, they took away some of the commuter parking lot and moved it to resident parking lot to accommodate for the large freshman class. So that's something I think we'll continue to navigate into the fall is the lack of commuter parking lot. And so we've heard quite a bit the last 2 days, and I'm sure we'll hear more, but that's kind of an update there. Otherwise, excitingly, the First Bank and Trust Arena is opening this fall. I think they plan to hold the volleyball games and the basketball games there this fall, and they have their grand opening September 26th, I believe. But that is it for my report. I'll stand by for any questions.
Council, have any questions for Claire?
Thank you, guys.
Some of us enjoyed moving people in on Friday morning. It was quite an adventure.
Fun. I helped too. Good to see some exciting new jackrabbits. So, thank you.
All right. All right, next, item 6C, presentation on pre-disaster mitigation plan. Luke Miller from First District will present to the Brookings area pre-disaster mitigation plan.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for the introduction. I am Luke Muller with First District Association of Local Governments. We work in Watertown. Some of you are familiar with what we do, some of you aren't. We've got people involved in grant writing and GIS, as well as people that do what I do. I work on land use plans, do zoning administration. I'm down here monthly, or at least helping out with the county as far as some of their zoning meetings, and worked with the county and city on joint jurisdiction for the better part of a decade. It almost seemed like there as we worked on that a couple of years back. Right now, one of the things I'm working on with the word plan in it is pre-disaster mitigation plan, and that is for Brookings County, City of Brookings, as well as all the other municipalities. It's a joint jurisdictional plan in which the city and county is required to keep updated every 5 years to remain compliant with Federal Emergency Management Agency for certain types of funding applications, being eligible for disaster funding and the like. The pre-disaster mitigation plan is just that. It's honestly, it's a little redundant because it says pre-disaster mitigation, which means the same thing. The whole point, though, is not a recovery plan. It is to try to do the best we can to minimize those things that we know are going to happen, whether it's a heavy rain or it's a 50, 60 mile an hour wind. I'd love to say that's never going to happen again. I'm also dreaming large rains, large blizzards, things like that we know are going to happen. They do happen. Even tornadoes that'll roll through. Have plans in place. Have, and as much as anything, managing those things. And so what has gone on is that staff has already held a meeting and worked through, generally with the city. We've done this before. We did it 5 years ago. I was here 10 years ago. I was here doing the same thing. We'll generally go through. Staff takes a look at facilities, making sure we've updated. We've got a critical infrastructure list as far as where you have emergency operations buildings, as well as emergency services and day-to-day services, to make sure that if we do have a disaster, they'll be able to operate in those cases. Do we have redundancies in service so that we can allow that sort of thing to continue going on? If we have a power outage, do we have electrical backup? That sort of thing. So in working with that, staff has put together a list of critical infrastructure that we've put together, as well as what's known through FEMA as far as the plan as populations to protect, which are those entities I usually describe in meetings like that as that first line where you would go take a look at. Let's make sure that those folks are okay. They may not be protected. They may not be in a place where they know the problem is going on or have a place to go to. We're going to go check on them. And so those are those populations to protect. Make sure that they have availability to storm shelters and communications for those situations. Another thing that we've gone through is just trying to categorize those sorts of storms. That's kind of going through on the fly, updating the plan, but basically we categorize them as severe summer storms, severe winter storms, flooding, and fire or drought, and group those into there. There are also questions in there about how prepared you feel like you are for, or how often you think earthquakes happen, which obviously they haven't very often. Same with landslides, thing like that, but just to verify the fact that they don't. In the end, what we're doing is creating a plan that has projects listed for what are known as hazard mitigation projects. Those are the sorts of projects, as I noted before, that would be to that end to try to minimize the effects of those inevitable natural events that we do see. We do see 25-year flood events. We do see 100-year flood events, unfortunately, in the town. We do see tornadoes and hail and wind and blizzards and that sort of thing. And so to prepare for those things, some of the things that were brought up and that we've had in the past are tornado shelters strategically placed, specifically at parks, campgrounds, near manufactured home parks, and the like. Generally, those are intended to be a 5-minute, half a mile, 5-minute walk, up to a mile from those locations, identifying those locations, and then potentially having them available. Ultimately, if those projects are listed and it's something that you do wind up coming together on and deciding we do want to go after building those are eligible for hazard mitigation funds if hazard mitigation funds are released at the time of a presidential disaster declaration in the form of an 80-20 grant. And so we have to have those projects listed. If there's something we're going to be asking for or we're going to be doing, doesn't hurt to have it listed, even if it's not something you intend on asking a grant for. One of the things that we did talk about is that I know that the drainage study had been going on, and to at least double back and reference some of the projects or the projects that are listed in there, as well as the projects that we had in the past. So with that, are there any questions of me or involving that plan?
Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if this question is for Luke or a member of our staff, but the worksheet that's on the screen now cites a backup generator. Would this be in addition to the generator that was just purchased for use in this facility?
It was actually, we limited it down, and what we took off originally in the previous document or the old plan, we had a backup generator listed as a portable generator, and ultimately, and for here and what was the Swift Health Center, that one was taken off for here because you've done that, and then we left in the permanent generator at the Dakota Bank Center to have in there as a emergency shelter. So that's what that was.
Any other questions, comments? Does the public have any questions or comments on this? Sir. Please come up to the mic, sir.
Okay.
State your name and then eventually write down on the deal that you were here, sir.
My name is Jason Elby, and I live here in Brookings, over by the airport. Came in a little late, but my big stipulation is Brookings is a big enough city, and I don't know the exact population of mobile homes in this house in this town, but lots of cities are requiring that those landlords be able to put up those structures and supply them. Granted, if they could get cost sharing, that'd be great, but I believe, in my personal opinion, there should be an ordinance that if they're gonna be able to double the rent or do whatever to the tenants, they should provide at least basic shelter, something we can get to. I don't care if it's a culvert. It's just something we can get to quick, 15 minutes. That's all we need. So that's my thoughts. So.
All right. Thank you for your comments.
Yep.
Anyone else from public would like to make any comments? All right. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
All right. First readings. Item 8A, introduction and first reading on ordinance 24-029, an ordinance certifying the 2025 City of Brookings property tax levy to the Brookings County Finance Officer. Ashley Wrench, our Finance Director, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. This is the first reading of Ordinance 24-029, certifying the 2025 property tax levy to the Brookings County Finance Officer. State law requires municipalities to certify tax levies included in the annual appropriation ordinance to the County Finance Officer by October 1st each year. The city's levy is computed by taking the amount that was certified last year plus factors for growth in the Consumer Price Index, which are provided to us by Brookings County. To calculate the levy for 2025, the growth factor is 2.1324%, and the Consumer Price Index factor is 3%. The total property tax increase for 2025 is approximately $205,000 for a total of just under $4.2 million. The second reading of this ordinance will be on September 10th, and with that, I'll stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Since this first reading, is there any public comment on this item? Council have any questions, comments? Councilmember Specker.
Yeah, Ashley, can you just explain like that the cost of living, that one's capped. So those years where the cost of living was more than 3%, the city was actually capped at 3%.
Right. Yep, so the CPI factor is capped by the state law at 3%. And so a couple years ago, when inflation was about 6%, we were right at 3%. Right now, we're right about 2.5% in CPI, but the CPI factor that was authorized by the state is 3% for 2025.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments for Ashley? Thank you. Item 8B, introduction and first reading on ordinance 24-028, an ordinance granting Franchise Mediacom Minnesota LLC to construct, operate, and maintain a cable television system in the city of Brookings, South Dakota, setting forth common conditions accompanying the grant of the franchise, providing for regulation and use of the system, and prescribing penalties for the violation of this provisions. Steve Brissman, our city attorney, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a first reading of a cable TV franchise ordinance. Earlier this summer, we held a first and second reading and approved a franchise ordinance for ITC for cable television services in the city of Brookings. This would be a first reading of a 10-year franchise proposed to be issued to Mediacom, a longtime cable TV provider. The second reading of this would be on September 10th. The cable franchise ordinance was drafted by me with input from Mediacom, and I'll stand for any questions that council has.
All right. Is there any public comment on this item? Council, questions, comments? All right, we'll move on to the next one. Item 8C, introduction and first reading an ordinance establishing reasonable accommodations pursuant to the Federal Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988. Steve Britzman will present this item.
Thank you again, Mayor. This is a first reading of a ordinance that was prompted by a request for reasonable accommodations to the city's ordinances that pertain to housing for people with disabilities. And through research, we determined that the city needed to establish clear rules that would apply to any requests for accommodations to provide equal opportunities for people with disabilities. And so in the absence of having a procedure to address that, we drafted an ordinance which would address those types of requests, provide for an application process for those individuals requesting accommodation under the Federal Fair Housing Amendments Act, and then providing for a hearing where the public and council can consider the application and the request for accommodation. This would be a first reading. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Is there any public comment on this item?
Hi, I'm Kara Bianchi-Rossi. All of you have heard from me on this ordinance that you have created. And what I have questions for the city is why aren't we standing by our current ordinances that we already have in place, our current zoning ordinances? This zoning ordinance is allowing more than 3 unrelated people to live in a single-family home in any neighborhood in this community. It could be up to 115 homes within this community that could have 10 people living in a single-family home. We already have an ordinance in place for this. 3 unrelated people, that would be okay. This is not just related to a sober living home, which is stated in the ordinance. This could be, I could have 10 people with animals that want to be in a house. I could have 10 people that have ADD that want to live in a home. We already have zoning ordinances for this. Why are we creating a zoning ordinance for a company that has already done this illegally in our town? My other problem is that is that we have, this home is next to my house, and I'm noticed several people coming and going from this home and wondered, so I asked Sarah Kaiser, who is a city employee, about the rental license. They have never applied for a rental license until they were asked to. The rental license was denied. They have 8 people living in this home currently, several cars coming and going at all hours of the day. I have several videos of all of these people, and they were asked to vacate on July 1st. They should have been vacated after the 30 days was given. They have not. Instead, we are creating this ordinance to allow this to happen. I would like these people to vacate. They could have 3 people living there. I'm fine with that, even though they do not have a rental license. I'm fine having 3 unrelated people living in a single-family home in my neighborhood. I own several rentals. I have rental license. I have followed the rules. We have allowed people to move into this house and not follow the rules of our city. So why do we have these zoning ordinances in our city if we aren't going to abide by them? I ask that the city does their job in regards to this ordinance and vacate these people until this has been resolved. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else?
Hi, my name is Molly Richter, and I also want to speak on this topic. I echo the concerns of Kara, and not just her, but I would say about 20 of our neighbors who have been frustrated since April that the city has not enforced their zoning. And the fact that we have spent time and money, we've had an attorney trying to deal with the city to get the city to enforce its zoning is beyond frustrating. I'm going to table that because you've all heard from us. You know our concerns. I'm more concerned now about this ordinance. The terminology through it, the verbiage is a little loose. I think it's opening you up to more problems. I'm definitely concerned about a 150-foot notification. I live more than 150 feet from one of these homes. I assure you it impacts more than 150 people. So if you're gonna do this, at least expand it, 300 feet at a minimum, 500 feet. I promise you, I have neighbors 500 feet from this home that have been affected by this. So letting those people know is one change I would recommend in this. The other thing is, Kara mentioned it, but if you take the city of Brookings and you put 2,000 circles with a 2,000-foot diameter, and you put those across the whole city, you'll get 115 circles. You could have 115 of these homes by the way that you've written this. So spacing these out more, if you feel the need to approve this ordinance, at least consider what that impact would have on the town. In 1996, our own Steve Breitzman went to the state Supreme Court to fight for our city zoning that allows 3 tenants, unrelated. And that has been upheld by the state Supreme Court since 1996. And it was created not for any violation of ADA or fair housing, it's for traffic and congestion and noise and parking. So if you suddenly allow 100 of these in the town, or even 10, you have changed the fabric of each neighborhood each time you do that. And I ask that these things be considered as you create this ordinance, if you feel the need to move forward. But I truly ask that you enforce the zoning that you already have and see that this may be needed for some reason, but if you're feeling like there's a gap for your Fair Housing Act and you're worried about litigation, fine, but consider what you have now and protect the residents who have purchased homes in single-family neighborhoods, expecting it to be a single-family neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments?
Nancy Flynn, 711 4th Street. I have 3 quick questions for you to think about. How is this particular home that already exists in our historical neighborhood going to enhance our neighborhood? How does this rental different from college rentals that we already have, and will it be monitored any differently? And did I hear from you, Steve, that it might be a case by case? Is that what I picked up with your last couple of questions?
That's correct.
Thank you for your comments. Please come forward, sir.
My name's Ed Hogan, and I taught urban geography for 30 or more years at SDSU. Taught planning. I've taught a lot of planners in the state of South Dakota. And the one thing you do when you create a plan is you live by it. And if you have an exception, then you go back to people and talk about it. But what you're talking about doing here is basically approving this quickly and changing everybody in Brookings, the value of every home in Brookings, because it will not be the same if you open up with a law like this and allow all this easy change. That's why you have planning, is to protect it. You have planning to provide a good neighborhood, a safe neighborhood, and it's essential that you do that. if you were concerned about somebody suing you because they don't get their plan approved, that's tough. Think how many people are going to sue you if you could lose the value of their home. You got a big can of worms here that needs to go back to where it started, and whoever started it needs to straighten it out. Thank you.
Thank you for comments. Are there any other comments?
Tom Bozade. I live at 802 4th Street. I've lived there since 1977. And I live approximately 40 feet across the alley from this house. It's 5,000 square feet. There's parking for 2 vehicles as I see it. And I guess what's been said here has been said here. There has been very little talk about what's going on here. And what I would like to do is ask you guys to not do the first reading on this and call a meeting so that people in town have some idea of what's going on and give the people of the neighborhood a chance to sit down and talk with you people. And the other thing is this has been going on for probably 4 or 5 months, and I personally would like to know what started, how they got into the house, how they're still in the house without a license, and I would just ask you to consider slowing down here and giving the public time to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments, please? Council, have any questions, comments on this item? Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a comment and then I have a couple of questions. The comment I would want to make, perhaps for clarity's sake, is when it comes to the property that's been referenced this evening, I would anticipate that at some point in the future there will be a conditional use permit that will come forward, and we'll have to have a conversation about that particular property at that time. And so I think some of the concerns that have been shared this evening probably are more germane to that decision point than this particular one, but I think the conversation is still valid. My question about this proposed ordinance maybe comes back to what already exists in our ordinances. If we receive reasonable accommodation requests and how we handle those up to this point and how this would allow us to handle future and current current accommodation requests.
Well, I think we've learned in doing the research based on a lengthy letter from an applicant for an accommodation request that in order to handle requests equitably and to make sure that we've considered the interests of the community, the public, all of the factors that would affect the people that would be impacted by a decision, that we needed to have a protocol. And in the past, we have not. We've had rules, and the rules still apply. However, federal law, of course, requires you to at least consider accommodating or modifying your rules if those rules provide a barrier for equitable housing opportunities. And so in the past, we really haven't had a procedure. So if we receive additional information in the future with respect to a couple of the properties that have been, or at least one of them that's been alluded to tonight, then we would review that application and provide the application for public information so that neighbors can learn about that application, and then have a hearing with clear guidance that allows the council to consider all of the evidence and the testimony. And without that, I think we wouldn't have really a proper procedure to analyze all of the issues that would come into play in making a decision, because we, under federal law, are required to consider any bona fide applications submitted on behalf of people with disabilities. And so that's why we haven't addressed any of that tonight, because we need to establish the procedure first.
Can I just clarify what you said, make sure I understand it and folks that might be watching understand clearly? If we were not to put this ordinance in place, we would perhaps not have criteria in place to evaluate this reasonable accommodations request that's been filed.
Correct. We'd still have a legal obligation to hold a hearing, but we really wouldn't have a comprehensive set of rules. I'm not saying that they're a voluminous set of rules, but I think well-thought-out procedures or a perspective to consider the application, and we would just be basically evaluating it without any guidance or without a protocol or a set of criteria. And I think it's always important to have a set of criteria so that you can apply uniformly with respect to each individual application that might come forward.
Can I ask one more follow-up? Thank you. When we consider a reasonable accommodations request that may be coming, whether it's from a tenant or coming from the property owner, should we give any weight to the property owner's adherence to our current policies and processes? I think the property that's been discussed this evening, the property owner has not abided by our current policies and processes. As a council, should we be considering that when we apply criteria like this, even if it's on a somewhat separate matter?
I think you have to look at the facts in terms of what would provide for an equitable opportunity. And so it wouldn't probably be a focus so much on the past as rather it would be a focus on the circumstances that would allow those people to have opportunities for housing. But it doesn't mean that you disregard the current rules. You consider the impact of a modification of those current rules and determine what the impact would be on a neighborhood. That's not, it's very clearly not an easy decision to make, because obviously those rules, as Dr. Hogan has pointed out, have been there in place for years and are well thought out. However, the federal law, in a sense, requires you to look at it from a different perspective, and that is that perhaps some rules provide an impediment for fair housing opportunities. And that's why we need to have a well-thought-out ordinance that provides the criteria and guidance so that you can listen to all of the testimony that would come before you and make a decision as to whether or not an accommodation of the rules. And in particular, one example that has been cited tonight would be the family definition under city ordinance. Should that be maintained, or should that be modified to provide equitable housing opportunities?
Councilmember Specker? You're good? Councilmember Tilton Burn.
So I realize this has been somewhat said already, but just to further clarify, the ordinance before us tonight does not address a specific home or a specific request. Instead, what this does is it creates a process or a path for us to be able to host the conversations, which was requested by one of the speakers tonight, to be able to even come together and consider what would be before us if one of these requests came forward. I would just kind of reiterate that this is something that is federally required in order to be able to consider some of these accommodations for folks that have certain types of disabilities. And the type of accommodation that we would offer would not necessarily be anything specific. It wouldn't necessarily always be the number of individuals in the home. It could address a wide array of different types of accommodations. And so really what this is doing is just giving us that process and giving us that path so that we can have conversations about accommodations for those that require them due to certain types of disabilities. And as a community that supports individuals who have certain types of disabilities, I really encourage us to think about this in a positive way, that this provides us a path for those folks that have disabilities in our community. So that is one comment I just wanted to make. I do also have a question, and that is, it looks like in the ordinance, the way that it's written, there are certain types of parameters that we would be looking at with each of these requests. Given the fact that there are parameters we can look at in different sort of benchmarks and criteria, can you clarify, would it be possible for council to deny these requests under this process if they come forward?
You can, if you determine that the location, or there are a variety of reasons why a denial could occur. The impact of the neighborhood or the community at large could prompt you to deny a request. The necessity to accommodate at that particular location would be another reason. In other words, that housing can be provided throughout the community alternatively, so that barrier doesn't exist. The applicant has to meet the qualifications under federal law, which would be that, in fact, it's submitted on behalf of people with a disability. And I think the actual location, in terms of the dimensions, the request that's made, the number of people in the case of our family housing definition, the number of people that are actually residing would be a factor. So there are a number of reasons why you could find that there is not a barrier based on current law.
And could one of those reasons be a determination that the accommodation being requested does not provide additional necessary support for that type of disability?
It could. I believe it could. The applicant will have to indicate why there needs to be an accommodation. And that indication would be presented in an application as well as possibly testimony before the council, if they choose to request that accommodation.
All right. Any other questions, comments from council? Second reading will be in action on this item will be held on September 10.
Dr. Hogan wanted to say something.
We've already taken public comment, but if you want to come up and make a comment again, sir, you certainly may.
Best thing to do is start over, start from the beginning and do it the way it should have been done.
Item 8D, introduction and first reading on ordinance 24-030, an ordinance to permit by conditional use a major home occupation hair salon on Lot 1, Block 3 of Moriarty Edgebrook Addition, also known as 1635 17th Avenue South. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The conditional ordinance before you tonight is for an in-home hair salon for one chair along 17th Avenue South near the Moriarty Park. Homeowner has applied looking to remodel a small portion of their two-stall garage to add in a single chair. When the request was evaluated by the staff and the recommendation provided to the Planning Commission, both received unanimous approval. The one condition that we'd put with this is that the conditional use is approved for the owner only. So if the owner sells the house, any future homeowner would have to reapply to establish that same use. So it does come unanimous approval from the Planning Commission, and Development Review Team supports the request. I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any comments from the public on this item? Council, any questions, comments? All right. This item also will have second reading on September 10th. On to item 9, second readings and public hearings. Second reading and action on ordinance 24-025, an ordinance authorizing budget amendment number 8 to the 2024 budget. Ashley Wrench, our finance director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading of ordinance 24-025, authorizing amendment number 8 to the 2024 budget. On July 23rd, the council approved resolution 24-022, authorizing the city manager to enter into an energy savings performance contract with Ameresco. This amendment sets the budget for this contract, increasing the other capital expenditure line in the second penny sales tax or capital improvement fund by $3,166,168 and transferring $500,000 to that fund from the general fund to account for a portion of the savings to be achieved through this contract. This project involves several upgrades at city facilities, including citywide LED lighting conversion, HVAC equipment upgrades, window and door replacements, a fire alarm replacement at Larson Ice Center, and a roof replacement at East Fire Station. The projects will also serve to reduce the city's carbon footprint by 15%. Staff recommends approval of this ordinance, and no changes have been made since the first reading. I'll stand by for any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Ashley. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Council have any questions, comments on this item? Please call the roll.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tildenburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Okay. Item 9B, public hearing and action on ordinance 24-026, an ordinance amending Chapter 82 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Brookings pertaining to the covering of vehicle loads in the City of Brookings. John Thompson, our Public Works Director, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. John Thompson with your Public Works. Item 9B is the second reading of ordinance 24-026. The proposed ordinance will address a clerical error in the existing code and clarify exemptions for county highway vehicles during winter and emergency operations. Chapter 82 of the Code of Regulations, Section 567, pertains to covering of vehicle loads within the City of Brookings. This section of code was revised back in 2013. However, that revision included a clerical error that was not noticed until recently. A redlined and clean copy of the proposed ordinance is included in your agenda package. This is a second reading and no changes have been made since the first. And this concludes staff's presentations and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, John. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any open to public hearing on this item? Is there any public comment? Close the public hearing. Does the council have any questions, comments on this item? Please call the roll.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tildenburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Okay, item 10A, action on resolution 24-079, a resolution transferring city manager contingency funds to city departments. Ashley Wrench, our finance director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Resolution 24-079, transferring contingency funds to city departments. Due to the increase in mosquito spraying over the summer, the Street Division has exhausted its 2024 allocation for mosquito abatement. This resolution will add $23,000 to the general fund from the general fund contingency to the Street Division's mosquito control account, providing adequate budget authority to continue mosquito abatement efforts for the remainder of the season. Staff recommends approval of this resolution, and I'll stand by for questions. Thank you.
We're good, aren't we? Did I say 9C? No, we're on 9C. We jumped to 10A. I'm sorry. I missed a page, I'm sorry. Let's finish this one. This is the contingency funds run, right? All right, let's do this one. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any public comment on this item? Council have any questions, comments? Councilmember Specker.
I just have a quick question on mosquito counts and whether you could let people know what they are now.
John Thompson, Public Works. Yeah, currently the mosquito counts are still low. We've been low for the last few weeks. So we've still been doing larviciding every day, trying to catch all the ponds that are still out there. The recent rains that we did have actually washed some of this down. So I think, well, we're hoping that the mosquito counts stay, but we just need these funds in case it comes up to be a normal September.
Any other comments, questions on this item? Please call the roll.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
All right, so let's get back on track. Item 9C, public hearing and action on ordinance 24-027, an ordinance amending Articles 1 and 2 of Chapter 72, storm drainage of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Brookings. Charlie Richter, City Engineer, will present this item.
Good evening, Council. As you already know, I'm Charlie Richter, your City Engineer, and I'm here to present the second reading to the revision of Articles 1 and 2 of the Chapter 72 storm drainage in the city's Code of Ordinances. This revision will alter the method of calculating the storm drainage fee for residential and non-residential properties. The recent update to the city's master drainage plan recommends updating the city storm drainage fee. The city's storm drainage fee pays for the maintenance of infrastructure, replacement of aging infrastructure, new projects that reduce flooding, personnel, maintenance of stormwater equipment, and public outreach and education. The current fee established in 1985 is calculated based on land use. Newer technology allows the city to provide a more equitable means of calculating this fee by basing it on the average impervious area on a residential parcel. This fee structure utilizes the equivalent residential unit to determine fees and is used by over 80% of communities with a stormwater fee. Under this ERU fee structure, all single-family parcels will be assessed one ERU. Commercial and industrial properties will be based on the actual amount of impervious on the parcel and will be charged a minimum of 1 ERU. An example of the improvement in equity can be seen in the above slide. Bonnie, if you could advance to the next slide. Next one, please. So this slide on the left is an industrial parcel that is 51 acres with 13 acres of impervious. Their current drainage fee is $23,604. The slide on the right is a parcel that is 12.8 acres with 12.1 acres of impervious. Their drainage fee is $6,723. Both parcels have similar impervious area, though one is billed 4 times as much. With the ERU fee structure, the parcel on the left will have a bill of $9,351, and the parcel on the right will have an annual bill of $8,670. All charges would continue to be invoiced through the property tax assessment. Effective 2025, the city is proposing an initial ERU financial charge of $6.14 a month or $73.68 a year. To account for future inflation, an annual 3% rate increase would occur starting in 2026. Under this new fee structure, the city will be able to fund $12 million worth of projects over the next 10 years. 2 questions came up in the first reading of this ordinance revision that I would like to address: equity, affordability, and tiered residential fee structure. The proposed ERU fee calculation based on impervious area provides a more defined impact commercial and industrial properties have on the city's infrastructure. The averaging of the impervious square footage of residential properties provides a baseline benefit that all property owners will reap, no matter if you are in a dry part of town or wet part of town. This is similar to trash pickup. No matter if you produce 1 bag of or several bags of trash, as long as it fits in 1 barrel, everyone pays the same price. Since the prior meeting, Public Works re-examined the effort and costs associated with implementing tiers within the residential property classification based on impervious area. The cost to implement and maintain the database for these tiers would require the ERU financial charge to increase substantially across all tiers. The extra funds generated by splitting the residential properties into tiers approximately equal the additional administration costs, creating little benefit to the city's stormwater efforts. Staff is committed to coming back to council in 3 years to update council on advancement in technologies such as AI and improvements to infrared scanning ability that would potentially lead to reduction in the ERU fee. Staff recommends approval of the ERU ordinance as proposed.
Thank you, Charlie. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Council have any questions, comments? Councilmember Specker.
Yeah, I just have a quick question on how you're going to monitor, like, when a business expands. I mean, you'll know that, obviously, because of all the permits. So will you then have it reassessed by satellite afterwards?
Yes, we plan to monitor all building permits moving forward, and we'll be able to identify increases in impervious area for these industrial lots.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Rasmussen.
Question on the flip side of that, if a property has a lot of impervious area and reduces that, can that again apply to have their fee reduced? They're adding more green space or different drainage or storage or something like that?
Well, unfortunately, that typically doesn't happen. But if it were to happen, and if someone wanted to question it, there is a review process that they can apply for us to review the impervious area on their property. What we plan to do is that in these next coming years, next 3 years, is to fly it over again to perform an infrared scan to make sure that, you know, what we have identified as impervious area on each one of these lots is appropriate.
Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a comment to make to reiterate what Charlie had shared on the tiered approach to the ERU application. At our last meeting, we had discussed, you know, whether or not we should take a flat approach or a tiered approach. You at the time had shared that there would be some pretty considerable administrative costs in trying to apply even a tiered approach to different properties based on size. And I want to thank you for going back and analyzing what that could look like. What I think some of your analysis demonstrated was that like 90% of all properties in the community would fall within kind of the normal bounds of the application of the ERU, and the outliers, whether it was small properties or large, comprise less than 10% of all properties in the community. And so while it would be a considerable administrative burden, it would impact a relatively small number of properties. And so for those folks that have been following along this ERU discussion or sent some emails this week with questions about it, I appreciated that staff did that analysis, and I just wanted to reiterate that it really was a relatively insignificant number of properties compared to the whole that would be impacted by a tiered system.
All right. Any other comments, questions from council? Please call the roll.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tiltonburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 9D, public hearing and action on a commercial corridor design review overlay district site plan for Lot 1 and Block 1 of Reserve 4th Edition.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The item before you tonight is a commercial corridor design review overlay district site plan review located at the intersection of 20th Street South and Christine Avenue. The applicant is proposing a pet hotel service down in this particular area. Earlier, well, it might have been more in 2023, early 2024, we did amend our zoning ordinance to allow pet hotels in a B2 district, provided all of these services are provided within an enclosed building. And so that's what they're proposing. This is a really nice plan that's being brought forward by the applicant. I'm pleased to say that it meets all of the requirements of the commercial corridor. It meets all of our zoning requirements, all of our landscaping requirements. No exceptions are being asked for. This doesn't happen often in my world, so this is like the ideal plan where they just designed it to meet all of the requirements. They do have access coming off of Christine Avenue. They do have a one-way access coming along the west side of the building to 20th Street South. It's primarily because they have their garbage enclosure in the southwest corner of the facility. It's kind of a phased approach. The first phase would be the southern building, and then they have the parking, the drop-off pickup areas for the pets, and then there's a potential building phase 2 in the future. This does come with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, and the Development Review Team supports the request. I'm not sure if the applicant is on the phone this evening or not, but
Yes, I am on the phone.
okay, she's available for any questions. I'd be available for any questions as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Open it up to the public hearing on this item. Marty Sullivan, are you ready to make comments?
Yes, I'm here to answer any questions that there may be.
Just here to answer any questions.
Oh, just here to answer questions. All right. Okay.
Yep, everything should be in the plan.
Any comments, other questions from the public? Close public hearing. Council have any questions, comments? Marty, I guess I got a question. What are the timelines on this? When do you plan to open?
Right now, we are hoping to open probably January 2026. We're hoping to break ground early spring.
All right. That being said, thank you for starting up the first new pet motel in town.
Yeah,
any other
absolutely.
comments, questions from council? Please call the roll.
Specker.
Aye.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Okay, item 9E, public hearing and action on Resolution 24-081, a resolution to amend the 2040 Comprehensive Plan's future land use map. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I need to preface this a little bit is periodically staff will bring forward to our Planning Commission some changes like you're seeing here tonight. What we've noticed is you do a 20, 40-year plan, you think you get it right, but the reality of it is things change over time. And so you need to kind of go back and amend your plan to make sure it's kind of in line with the development trends that you're seeing. The landowners owning the land along some of these areas, it's consistent with them. So we kind of broke it down into multiple phases. The first phase we're looking at is kind of a 20th Street South corridor, kind of looking from the interchange going west to city limits. What we did is staff looked at these areas, put together some recommendations, brought it to the Planning Commission for a discussion item to kind of gauge the Planning Commission's interest is, are we serious about this, trying to clean up some of the areas to make sure that the zoning aligns with the future land use and vice versa, and trying to streamline the process and make it a little bit more developer-friendly when the homeowners, property owners want to do something. We've ran into instances where they bring forward a zoning request and it's like we have to pause, go do an individual future land use map amendment, and then we can re-engage the zoning process. So we're trying to be a little bit more proactive about this. Typically, when you do a future land use map, it's one large map. And we really wrestled with how to show you the level of detail because it's a several mile long corridor. And you're just going to see little pinpoints and not get a good feel or understanding if we did it as one map. So we broke it down into areas so you'd have a little bit better idea of what is going on. Once we did that, we talked with the Planning Commission, then we decided to schedule public hearings. We sent letters to the property owners that would potentially be impacted by this, inviting them to come in, be part of the discussions, just to help inform and educate what we're doing. It's not a zoning change. It's simply a future land use change that helps set the guidelines to support zoning request changes in the future. So with all that background, we're kind of starting at the interchange and moving our way west along 20th Street South. So the first one is kind of this location right at the interchange, 20th Street South and I-29. It's a combination of kind of mobile home manufactured housing area, a little bit of open space wetland. We're recommending that it be considered for urban high-intensity type use, looking at commercial development near that interchange. Moving right along, the next one is we kind of get kind of in that area between 17th Street South and the soccer complex. This one is proposed to look at an urban medium intensity. What we've been seeing along 20th Street South in particular, you know, as you get a little bit to the west of intersection of 22nd Avenue and 20th Street South, when you're getting some of the residential components around there, we're seeing interest in urban medium intensity. And what that does is it's a nice little buffer. It does allow some commercial, the introduction of commercial mixed-use type projects, but it's not your high-intensity type commercial uses, so it's a nice mixture. In this particular location, what the Planning Commission discussed, and I think DRT supported is kind of making sure that the urban medium intensity matches the urban medium intensity to the west in the Branch Creek development, and then allow that medium density residential to continue on the southern portion. So. The next one is over in the Prairie Hills addition. It's just looking at converting from an urban low to an urban medium intensity. For all essential purposes, this is almost built out, and it's really being built out to be more of an urban medium intensity. So it just makes sense to get it aligned a little bit more closely. And so that's kind of a cleanup recommendation there. I missed one. The other one is, this is a cleanup as well. A lot of you will recognize this as the depot site at Madera and 20th Street South. It's a developed parcel. It's already zoned commercial. We just wanted to make sure that our future land use map is consistent with our zoning. So this is simply just a cleanup. The next one is located at the intersection of Main Avenue South and 20th Street South. It's currently a vacant parcel. It's urban low intensity. Staff's recommendation would be to update that to an urban medium intensity to be more consistent with what we're seeing along the requests and what has been being built along the 20th Street South corridor. We had a couple of other areas as we continue to move west of Main, kind of looking at what ifs, should we address them? And I'll tell you is at this particular time, we're not recommending them for change, but I'll still cover them anyways, and a little bit of justification for why. This particular one is in no man's land, so it kind of fits right between three buffers of high density residential, medium density, and low density residential. But it's like if something were to come there, and it's actually two lots, and occasionally you find people that are looking for these kind of opportunities where they may want to create a small little office and they find a unique piece of property, and it's like, how would we address that? Because it would need to have some sort of zoning. It falls in between three different future land use classifications, but we felt this is one that we're going to punt on, and we're going to really let development drive what it should be when the timing is appropriate, because maybe there's something a little bit bigger that could be accomplished there. Likewise, the next one is at the intersection of Western Avenue and 20th Street South. There's some opportunities there. There is kind of a vacant parcel near that intersection, but that was one of those things where it was a lot of unknowns and not really seeing the need or the desire for commercial that far west yet. Might need a little bit more population base to support some commercial activity in that time. So felt that at this time it's probably not appropriate to include those. So the Planning Commission and staff's recommendations are to recommend approval of the future land use map changes. Everything from Interstate 29 going west to Main Avenue, And then the changes proposed west of Main Avenue not to do anything with and just leave them as is for the time being. Like I mentioned, it does come as a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, and the Development Review Team supports the request, and I would stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Open up the public hearing on this. Is there any public comments on this item? Okay, close public hearing. Any questions, comments from the council? Councilmember Specker.
Thank you. I have a question on the ones that are hatched. So were those, they're not recommended, but why were they discussed during these meetings as being possible changes?
They were discussed. A lot of these areas were kind of originally proposed by staff based upon, we've maybe had some conversation or we've fielded questions from the public over it, what's going on here, is this available, things like that. Could you do this? What if I wanted to do this? So we kind of keep track of those things, and so then when we brought it forward to the Planning Commission to have that discussion, and then we kind of go to the public hearing process, and we just kind of felt with some of these, it's like, there's not really anything immediately pressing about it. Do we want to force the issue on it, or do we want it to naturally occur? And we just kind of felt like some of these areas are maybe a little far removed from our, some of our other commercial avenues or areas that it would maybe be a little bit of a duck out of water in that particular location. Maybe when some additional population base is generated in the area, and in this particular area, there's potential kitty corner to the northwest. As that development occurs, there could be some sort of smaller, more localized commercial activity, and then it might make sense. So that's kind of why we passed on it for the time being.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions from council? Please call the roll.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
All right, we've already handled 10A. Let's go on to 10B, action and resolution on 24-078, a resolution declaring boundaries and recommending creation of tax increment financing district number 16. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Resolution 24-078 is the first step in our TIF process. It's the important step of creating the boundaries for tax increment district number 16. This is a TIF district that is intended to assist the Solventum project with site improvements, grading improvements, infrastructure improvements. But the first step is creating the actual physical district boundaries. It does come to you as a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, and staff supports the creation of the district. It is consistent with our economic growth by providing diversified community investment and equitable opportunities for prosperity. With tax increment financing districts, it's pay as you go. So the company developer in this case would front the project costs and would only be reimbursed increment that is generated from the improvements that are made on the property. With that, like I mentioned, unanimous approval from the Planning Commission. Staff recommends approval. I would stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. So moved.
All right. Is there public comment on this item?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Tim Reed, Brookings Economic Development Corporation. This TIF is being provided as an incentive. It started out to be for 3M, and as everyone probably knows that's drove by, that they have changed their name to Solventum. This process started back in 2021 as the company was discussing with local officials that they were thinking about expanding. And a company like this has different, an international company like this can have many sites, whether it be in the U.S. or internationally, that they could expand. And so during those discussions, it's where the discussion of using a TIF to help incentivize the product or the project was offered. So then we fast forward to 2023, 3M announced an expansion investment of potentially $468 million in their Brookings plant. At that time, phase one of the expansion was announced as an investment of $158 million. As the project was developed, the first phase was increased to $221.9 million investment. After the expansion announcement, 3M announced they would be spinning out their healthcare business. April 1st of this year, the spin-out was completed, and the Brookings plant is now the largest manufacturing facility of the new company, Solventum. Solventum's total investment of the project, as I said before, is $221.9 million, and that includes taxes. The estimated one-time economic impact for the region for the construction is over $280 million. This will add 48 jobs. Now, 48 jobs had been scheduled to leave the plant. Most of them have, but this will actually replace those jobs. While it was still 3M, they sold a product line, and that caused a reduction in employment. But this expansion will replace those employees, all but 2 of them. Of those jobs added, 37 are hourly and 9 are salary. That has an annual payroll impact of over $2.6 million. If you put the multiplier with that, if you take into account indirect and direct, that is actually a payroll of $3.7 million for the Brookings economy. It also has a taxable on an annual basis when you have that kind of an increase in employment. It has a taxable, sorry, I don't have that number right here. It also has an annual tax for the community of $84,000 a year when you have that. That's what that employment is worth. Economic development is important for the community. I know a lot of times we focus on the dollars and cents. You guys are always looking at your budget. You want to know about sales tax. I don't blame you. That's how you improve the community. But I think when we talk about economic development, we always have to be looking at the types of jobs that are being brought in. And these are good, high-paying jobs. And when I was graduating from college, I had the opportunity to work for 3M when there wasn't a lot of jobs available for college graduates in Brookings. And so that's the kind of things that we have to be thinking about with economic development, and that's why I asked for your approval of the 2 items on your agenda tonight for this TIF district. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments on this item? Close public comments. Council have any questions, comments? Councilmember Specker.
So the comments, what we're talking about right now is strictly the boundaries of this TIF?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions from council? Please call the roll.
Wendell?
Aye.
Avery?
Aye.
Doran?
Aye.
Niemeyer?
Aye.
Rasmussen?
Aye.
Specker?
Aye.
Tilton Burn?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 10C, action and resolution on 24-080, a resolution adopting the tax increment district number 16 project plan. Mike will also present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. This is the second step in the TIF approval process. This is the approval of the project plan. The project plan is kind of where you get into the details as far as eligible project costs, what the funds are to be spent for, how much could potentially be generated in tax increment revenue over the duration of the TIF. It's a 20-year time frame. Gets into different feasibility and economic evaluations. A lot of fun, interesting material when you can't sleep late at night. So this is essentially, they've identified $5 million as eligible project costs to include site grading, infrastructure improvements to address issues with water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and the road. Solventum would be responsible for fronting all the costs and would only be reimbursed what is generated from the improvements, the property tax and improvements increment that's generated from those new projects. A couple of things. By state law, municipalities are restricted to a maximum of all properties in a tax increment financing district. The total taxable value cannot exceed 10% citywide. We're at less than 2% with this project. And this is probably the single largest TIF project where we've done where the base value is this large. And we're like somewhere in the ballpark of about 1.6 to 1.7%. And the nice thing is our TIFs have been producing stronger than originally projected, and so we've been able to decertify TIF districts sooner than the 20-year time period. So there's still opportunities if good projects come forward in the future. It's good to keep track of this to make sure that we don't climb too close to that 10% because you want cushion. But it's in good shape. Our TIFs are citywide. With that, it does come to you with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission. Staff supports the approval of the project plan, and with that, I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Alan Ostreim, not necessarily on this item, but on the last item, when you voted to approve the boundaries, I think it would have been proper to maybe put the boundaries up on the screen so that the public that has taken the time to come tonight could actually see what you're voting on. Just sitting in the crowd, I'm no more informed now than I was when I walked in tonight, other than it's approved. I just think that'd be helpful to the people who are taking the time to come and try to stay informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Any other public comments on this item that we're talking about? Council have any questions, comments? Councilmember Specker.
Mine are more for Tim. So you had mentioned that 3M lost 48 jobs, and then 46 of those have been replaced with this TIF when figuring out the benefits of it. But then you also mentioned like there were, what, 226 million, whatever, 222 million in salaries. What were the salaries that were lost? Like, what's the difference in actual income that's being generated from prior to this to the current?
Councilmember Specker, I almost fell into being in the legislature and wanted to say Mr. Mayor, but Councilmember Specker, the annual payroll, I think that's what you're asking, is the annual payroll that was lost is estimated at $2.4 million. The gain of those 46 jobs, because there's more salary jobs, is $2.6 million.
Okay, which comes out to about $56,000 a year for those 40, if you averaged it across those 46 people. I guess I'm concerned because the TIF to me is sort of where we can really entice companies to build in Brookings and really benefit the economy, bring in new things. You know, if you look at what the guidelines are, it's for blighted areas to rebuild those. And I just have concerns about using the TIF when we've actually lost, for something that we've lost jobs and hasn't really increased salary significantly to justify up to $5 million TIF.
So the in state law, besides blighted, it does allow use for incentivizing economic development. And so that is a use. That's the same use that we used back when I was mayor that we did for Bell Brand, so we have used it to do this. The number of jobs added at 46 is quite a large amount, and the annual pay or the hourly pay for those folks are at and above average. Right now in economic development, you really don't even start talking incentives until you're talking $22 an hour, and that plus benefits. And so these are the type of jobs, good high-paying jobs that we do want to keep in Brookings.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Tilton-Burn.
I have one comment and one question. The comment that I would like to make is actually in reference to the question of the boundaries. I just wanted to note that the boundaries are listed in our packet, and they've been available to the public for several days since the publication of the packet. So if anybody viewing would like to see those boundaries, they are available on the city website, linked in the packet. My question is similar to the one that Councilmember Specker asked on the last item, and that is, for this particular piece, as what we are considering is the plan for the project, not necessarily how the TIF district will work in terms of dollars used in the TIF, correct? This is just the project plan?
I think it is linked to the specific improvements that will be made.
Councilmember Tilton-Burn, I think the question is, the project plan doesn't specify the level of detail that a development agreement would be. That would discuss potential, how the tax increment revenue is dispersed, paid out. And is that kind of where you're leaning
Yes,
towards?
exactly, yes.
Okay, so there'd be a separate development agreement that would come through that, there could be revenue sharing between the city and Solventum. Those are kind of part of the negotiations, and that gets more detailed than what the project plan would get into.
And those details will come at a later time.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I got one.
Paul?
On that topic with the development plan, and this might be more for Tim, do we have an idea when that will be coming forward for city council action?
I'd like to bring it to the last meeting in September.
Okay, I have a question. One is 3M did dissolve a department and sold that. The people that were in that department, were they absorbed? Were they offered positions? And how many of them actually were able to stay at Solventum? And so, that being said, they really didn't lose a job, they filled another position.
All right, Jim Burkhardt, I'm the plant director at Solventum. Yeah, so the area, the department that was dissolved, all those employees were absorbed into our current operating structure. We didn't do any reduction of headcount at our facility.
All right, so they really weren't lost, they were absorbed, they're still there, so it's really not, say, an economic impact that was lost. That's the way I look at it. So we've actually absorbed those, even in positions that were needed to be filled to begin with. So I see that as a win-win. Any other comments, questions? Please call the roll.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
No.
Tilton-Burn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Item 11, progress report. Samantha Beckman, our assistant to the city manager, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This is the August 2024 progress report. We held our last public open house for the downtown master plan earlier this month. That will be coming back to you guys in about October, and thank you for everybody who attended that meeting. The Economic Development Master Plan and Brookings Insight dashboards have both been updated as part of our biannual updates to both. You can find those dashboards on the city's website as well. Our new Deputy City Clerk, Amber, was introduced to you tonight. And then we also have a new medical cannabis dispensary opening up in town called Genesis Farms. And several alcohol compliance checks were conducted by the police department, and all businesses on the screen passed. In the engineering division, we've got several ongoing projects, including the University and 22nd Avenue sewer improvements that are progressing well and are currently on schedule to be completed before the first home football game. Our street maintenance and overlay project is also progressing on schedule for an October target date. In the streets, or engineering division still, sorry, chip sealing and slurry sealing are both completed for this year. Our concrete maintenance project is finishing up with some minor add-ons being done now. And BMU has a couple of ongoing projects as well at the 20th Street South project, where BMU and the contractor are addressing some warranty follow-up items. And 34th Avenue, where the curb and gutter work was completed north of 6th Street, and that section will be paved before they move further north towards Belbrands. The Solid Waste Division is implementing the Solid Waste Master Plan. They're planning on vinyl wrapping the collections trucks this year in recycling awareness messaging. The leachate force main design contract has been awarded, and they are on track to be completing that design by the end of 2024 with groundbreaking in spring of 2025. We are waiting on a contractor to become available to pave the parking lot out there. And a service agreement has been signed with a consultant to come on board and do an operational analysis to be completed in mid-September, which will show us how to be more efficient in the department. The Household Hazardous Waste event was held on August 17th with over 380 vehicles that drove through and dropped off some of their hazardous waste, which is an increase over, I looked it up, last year we had 323 vehicles. We also got just over $1,000 in cash and a trailer full of non-perishable food, which was donated to the Brookings Food Bank. Construction at the landfill equipment building will start in mid-September. We've got an e-waste program currently in development stages, and a new collection truck is expected by the end of the year. We have 3 new hires in the police department, 1 patrol officer and 2 communications operators. We've also had 1 internal promotion to a lead dispatcher, so congratulations to all of those individuals. Thank you for everybody who stopped by Zestos for the first Cone with a Cop in July. And we also just wrapped up the 2024 Safety Town, where we had just over 50 teens volunteering and 200 kiddos who graduated this year. Thank you to everybody who participated and any community members that came and donated their time to guest speak to those kids. We had 4,500 welcome packets for SDSU that were stuffed by some community service officers. In those packets, there was information on parking ordinances, snow emergencies, and animal control. National Night Out was held at the beginning of August at Pioneer Park, which is a community building campaign that promotes police and community partnerships and camaraderie. Tonight, the police department is kicking off their first and opening session of the Citizens First Responder Academy, which is a 12-week course where participants receive information and instructions from the police department as well as several other local first responding organizations. The police department has also brought back free bicycle registration in town. This information will help us enter into our system and help reunite lost and stolen bikes with their owners. We are partnering with 2 local bicycle companies in town, Blue Stem Bicycles and DO Bike and Fitness. You can stop by either of those 2 businesses or the police department to register your bike. Seniors have been busy with trips, classes, and events at the Brookings Activity Center. Just about 100 dogs participated in the annual Soggy Doggy event that was held in partnership with the Brookings Humane Society, and that concluded this year's season at Hillcrest Pool, which is now closed. Ice is in at the Larson Ice Center. Open skate schedules can be found online or at the parks office. Forestry crews are busy treating trees for Dutch elm and emerald ash borer. And as a part of a Public Arts Commission project, the pickleball art screen finalists were selected, and voting is taking place now to see whose art will be displayed at the new pickleball courts. Staff is attending the National Recreation and Parks Association, GREAM, stormwater infrastructure classes, along with SDSU's Extension Office. The Dakota Bank Center held 24 events in August. Some highlights there included multiple large weddings and the annual Brookings County 4-H Achievement Days. The city is seeking applications from passionate individuals interested in advancing bicycle initiatives within the community to serve on the Bike Subcommittee. The Bike Subcommittee operates as a specialized group within the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. Members will help play a crucial role in advancing local biking infrastructure, promoting cycling activities, and fostering bike-friendly environments. Interested candidates should submit a letter detailing their interest in joining the Bike Subcommittee and their vision for cycling in Brookings. Applications must be received no later than Thursday, September 5th, and letters should be mailed or emailed to Kristen Zimmerman, and her contact is on the screen above. We've got several ongoing park projects, including the resurfacing of several basketball courts around town. At Hillcrest Park, there's some irrigation that was put in recently, as well as the ribbon cutting on September 19th at 4:30 p.m. for the new pickleball courts that are just about finished. The floor was replaced at the Larson Ice Center. Some planks were replaced and a bridge near the Fishback Soccer Complex. And a new cart path was added at the Edgewood Golf Course. And last but not least, the library's got new windows. We had just over 1,000 kids and teens signed up for that summer reading program. And this summer, we had 6,150 kids and teens who attended 138 library events. And I will stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Samasta. Councilmember Tilton Burton.
Thank you. I have two questions. One deals with the slurry seal that we did. I know that this was sort of a new endeavor for us, trying out a different way to treat our roads. At some point, will there be a report on how that went, or will we hear how that performed?
John Thompson, Public Works. Yeah, for the slurry seal on 22nd Avenue. Yeah, we'll have to wait probably a year and a half, 2 years to see how that armor works. The process itself went very well. It was very low impact to the community, and we're just hoping that that'll extend that section of 22nd for another 5 or 6 years until we have the funding to expand it down there. But we won't have anything immediately. Plus, we also just finished the chip seal, and you'll notice on the chip seal, we did one extra step on that. It turned it to a fog seal on the top, which turned it back black. So that really actually brightened that road up too. So both of those processes were new this year. We're going to be analyzing the costs and then just looking at the wear ratio on both of those.
I definitely did notice the additional step that happened even on the chip seal, and it seems to be keeping some of that dust that folks usually experience on the rock down a bit, so that's encouraging to see. My other question is in relation to the Dutch elm and emerald ash treatments that are happening. Are property owners who have some of these trees, perhaps like in the boulevard or on the property, are they being notified if those trees are being treated so that they can be aware of that?
That's a question that I can definitely ask the Parks Director and then respond back to you guys.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Samantha? All right, thank you, Sam. Okay, our next regular meeting will be held on September 10th. Obviously, the first readings we had this evening, we'll be looking at those again. We will certainly get an student association report, ex officio reports from BMU and Hospital Board. Currently, we have no first readings, and consent agenda, we've only got the minutes on it so far. With that being said, does council have any questions or comments? Or Councilmember Specker?
Yes, since 3M has come up, I was just wondering when the last time we had the PFAS report was and whether they could update us on that. And is that going to be a 3M update or a Solventum? Like, who's now responsible for the PFAS?
That's a good question.
Jim, is that something that you can address?
Jim Burkhardt again. I'm plant director. So we've been, currently, we have been giving updates to the South Dakota DANR and then the BMU, right, and the city on probably twice a year frequency, right? So we have been doing that piece. Related to who would do them now. Right now, we've been doing them kind of jointly. We've had 3M representation there, right? And then we've had our, I would call Solventum or the right, our own plant personnel there as well.
I think it would be nice to have them present at council again, and I think it's been a while, about a year maybe.
Sure, we're happy to arrange that. I mean, are you looking yet in September, or get back to you on a date?
We do have a work session.
Sometime in the fall.
Okay.
We do have a work session September 19th, but I can contact you.
Okay.
We can set up a date and then
Perfect.
let council and the public know.
Thanks.
Happy to. Yep. Thanks.
Real quick, to Holly's question, our Parks Director is watching the meeting, and she just texted me. She said, yes, property owners are being notified. And the other thing to let the public know is we do also have a public dashboard, so people can see the work that's being done on the internet as well.
Okay. Any other council items that want to be brought? All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moving second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming.